Everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. All right, so we are going to do a little tiny bit of review from last week, a couple paragraphs that were pretty significant. And you don't have to go to the location if you don't want to, because this is just one quick little section. But the concept or the idea of we don't want to bring God down into my illusion. We want to leave the illusion and go up to God. And it's very important because so often when people are working with not necessarily the course, but other spiritualities, they want to fix the world. You know, bring God down. I want a new car. I want a new red bicycle, or if my, make sure my pet is okay, whatever. And this is really about letting go of our investment in the world, opening the door completely unknown to what the results of that are going to be, which takes a little bit of getting used to for many of us because we're so acclimated to doing it the other way. And yet, when we can begin to work in that direction, then we will automatically begin to align with what is true, and then the truth can come flowing through. As long as I'm doing it over there, I've closed the door to truth coming forward. So it's a vital concept that's really very important. All right, we are going to move to text 6257 in an old book, if you happen to have it, in paragraph number 2, and text 62. And I'm just going to read a couple lines in this paragraph because we read it last week, but I think it's significant in regard to setting the pace for where we're going at this time. All right, so we're going to start with line 2. When your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous, then no, this need not be. In every case you have thought wrongly about some brother God created, and are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. Think honestly what you have thought that God would not have thought, and what you have not thought that God would have you think. Search sincerely for what you have done and left undone accordingly, and then change your mind to think with God. This may seem hard to do, but it is much easier than trying to think against it. And I'm going to just stop there and go through line by line a little bit. So when your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous. And let's just stop with the word joyous. And what that means is literally anytime you've lost your peace in any way, shape, or form. It could be just simply your mind is chattering away about whatever it's judging in the last 5 minutes. Anything where you are not experiencing joy, peace, and connection. And Jesus is trying to help us recognize this need not be. There is a way out of the game that the ego has set up. In every case, you have thought wrongly about some brother God created and are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. Well, you could think about anything that comes from here is coming from a darkened glass. It's coming from the belief system of the ego, not from the belief system of truth in your mind. And, I remember Ken years and years and years and years would say, if you're not fully joyous in this case, or at peace, it's because you have thought something against a brother. And it's not always easy to connect the dots as to what's that is causing that to happen. And I don't often even acknowledge, or I'm not aware that I'm holding something against my brother. And we can always ask that this be shown to us if we really want to find out, which we don't always really want to find out, but when we're ready to find out, we can ask. It won't necessarily just pop up and show you in a moment, but if we keep that as our underlying request, eventually you'll either connect the dots or the whole situation will be healed and you won't even have to figure out what the dots that needed to be connected need to be. But the bottom line is, if you're not feeling that, it's because you're holding something against someone, and that someone highly likely could be yourself. We can't forget that character, because that character is equally the same as a brother out there. And if you remember, both these characters are coming from your mind. So if your mind is a mind made of guilt, sin, and fear, it doesn't matter which character I'm looking at, whether it's something outside of me or if it's myself, it's still coming from that part of my mind that believes in separation. And as he's calling it in this particular character, or in this paragraph, you're looking at it from the darkened glass. Well, I talked last week of the idea of wearing sunglasses. If somebody walked in with sunglasses, every single thing in the room would be shaded by those sunglasses. Well, literally, everything is shaded when we've chosen for the ego. And we're so accustomed to the darkness, we don't even know we're in the darkness until, when we start at least, until something horrific happens. And then it gets our attention, and then we're all of a sudden all wrapped up in whatever. But literally, it's happening all the time, and we're just so addicted to it, we don't know. Yeah.
Good. There's sometimes I think that I am in a neutral, but I know I cannot be in neutral. I'm either
Yep,
in
one or the
ego
other. Yep.
or the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And when I'm in the neutral, I don't have this joy. So that means I'm still in the ego.
Yeah, good chance, good chance.
But it's still a peaceful place.
Right, it's better than a chaotic place,
Right,
in other
right,
words, yes.
right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something, as good little egos, we spend a lot of our time preparing to have nice experiences. Let's say you want to have a picnic today, and you get all your stuff ready, and this is going to be a wonderful time. And then you get everything ready and it starts raining, or you get everything settled and the bugs start crawling around. You're not really at peace. And Jesus wants us to become acutely aware at how frequently we're not really at peace. Not to make us feel even more uncomfortable than we already do, but because when we can hone in on that and become aware of it, we can do something about it. And as long as I'm not aware, I'm not going to ask for help because I don't even know there's something wrong. All right, so I love the next line, and we talked about this last week again. Think honestly what you have thought that God would not have thought, and what you have not thought that God would have you think. And it's a precious little line. And in truth, the only thing that God ever thinks is love or truth, capital T. Everything else is in the darkened glass. And if we want to come to the place of getting out of the darkened glass, we have to step into the other section or the other realization. And how many times, begin to observe your day, your moments, your situations. And obviously, when you're in a chaotic situation or conflict with somebody, it's pretty obvious you're not thinking with God. I don't know about the rest of it, pretty obvious to me, that's for sure. But to become aware, if I am not totally at peace and joyous, then I am not thinking with God. And again, not to judge yourself, not to attack yourself because you become aware of that, but simply to recognize, oh, I guess I've chosen wrongly, I can choose again. All right, search sincerely for what you have done and left undone accordingly, and then change your mind to think with God's. And Jesus talks about searching, looking, becoming aware, becoming conscious, becoming aware of what you're up to. Because as long as we're got our eyes closed and we're asleep, there's not much gets revealed. And when that happens, we'll just continue to dream the dream of insanity. All right. This may seem hard to do, but it's much easier than trying to think against it. And Jesus, from his point of view, this is what's difficult. This is simple. But from our point of view, because we are so addicted to doing it in the way we've been doing since the Big Bang, it's a little bit challenging for us, especially initially, to start working in the direction of what he has to offer. All right, so we're going to go to paragraph number 4. And I know we read this one as well, but I think the concept or the idea of anxiety is so prevalent in all of our lives. Even if it's you're trying to make dinner and the things are not cooking the same time and you get anxious or upset. These are moments you're literally not joyous. All right, so when you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego, and no, this need not be. You can be vigilant against the ego's dictates as for them. And not only can we be vigilant for them or against them, in any given moment, we're for one or we're for the other. So again, when we catch ourselves being anxious, and I often suggest that you really hone in on the specific issues that really trigger you. And if you're someone that gets anxious very frequently, use that as one of your little red flags. Oh, there I go again. And put a smile on your face when you're observing, though, because it's not about reprimanding. That's not it at all. It's simply, if I'm anxious, I'm not at peace. And I want to know that so that I can come to peace. Because I know how we just turn it around and start slapping ourselves around whenever we become aware, and that's not the goal. So when you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. And this is interesting. We'll talk about that in a moment. Leave the sins of the ego to me. That is what atonement is for. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. While you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt. This need not be. So when you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God. I'm just going to stop right there. We violated the laws of God. Well, how did I violate the laws of God? Well, the laws of God are you are loved, you've always been loved, you will always be loved, and so is absolutely everything else and everyone else. So if you're not feeling that, there's some aspect of the laws of God you're violating. And again, don't look at this from a reprimanding experience. Just simply become aware. Look, I must be afraid of the love of God because I'm still choosing to cover it over with that darkened glass. But you have not. And what Jesus is saying here is, yes, in your belief system, you believe you are doing this and you're pulling this off. But who you really are remains here, unaffected and unchanged. It's simply the Halloween costume that we've put on, and we're running around the neighborhood scaring people, and ourselves, for that matter. But that's not who we are. All right, so he said, leave the sins, and notice the word sins is in quotes, and anytime a word is in quotes like that, it's an ego word, not a truth word. So he says, leave the sins, and we know from the perspective of the Course doesn't believe in sin. The Course believes in mistake, but not sin. So when he's kind of joking around when he says the sins, because we believe we've sinned. So leave the sins of the ego to me. Well, how do I leave the sins of the ego to me or him? I drop my investment in the story that I hold about the sin. Hers, his, or mine. Doesn't matter what form they come in. And it could be with a dog or a cat or, whatever it is that's upsetting or irritating you.
Broken air conditioning.
A broken air conditioning, yes, yes, exactly. Or my chair's not comfortable, or this or that, or whatever it happens to be. One time we were at the foundation, and Ken started the class by saying, I want you to observe from the time you got up this morning to the time you walked in the door, and think of all the times and all the ways that you were disrupted. Somebody didn't smile at me. I didn't like what they served for breakfast. Somebody bumped me. I didn't get the chair I thought I wanted in the room. Whatever it might be, so that we get our minds operating in that way of observation, so that we become much more fine-tuned with what's going on all the time. Because literally, we're brain dead. The choice for separation made us brain dead. I was now an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control, and I had nothing that I could do to undo that. Now we're being presented with ways to take care of that and do something about it. All right, so he said, leave the sins of the ego to me. I'll take care of them. And he said, that's what the atonement's for. And should I read what the atonement is? Sure, we always need a review on that. If I can reach it, just out of reach. All right, so the atonement means ATO. All right, the atonement, the Holy Spirit's plan of correction to undo the ego and heal the belief in separation. It came into being with the creation of the Holy Spirit after the separation, and will be completed when every separated son has fulfilled his part in the atonement by total forgiveness. And total forgiveness is knowing that none of this is real. And that how I get to that point is every time I have that concern or upset or whatever in the world, that I give it to the Holy Spirit and ask him to show me how to heal it. Let him show me, let him take care of it, as he says here. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. Again, how we see our brother is really holding us in jail as well. I'm going to read that one again. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. This is a rough one, because our eyes, our ears, our emotions, our everything has been programmed to see the brother as an idiot. And the brother plays their part so well. And the last thing in the world naturally flowing is, oh, let's see, Holy Spirit, I'm going to give this to you because, you're going to take care of it, not me. It's not the flow. It's not the natural flow at this time, because we're so addicted to playing the game from that place. Now, eventually, that will become the flow. Just like when we practice any skill, we get better and better at it, and eventually that's going to be our natural flow versus the ego way of being our natural flow. But that's going to take a little bit of practice when we're sitting from. All right. So again, what's this about the ego has hurt? Well, what if, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't do anything to him. But what's going on in your head? Are you thinking love about that person 24 hours a day? Or is it little, because it doesn't matter if you're saying or doing or reacting, or just simply judging and attacking. And I know all of you have had the experience where somebody walks in the room or whatever, and if you're watching your thoughts, you've got a knife or something, and you're just slashing and hashing those people. It's not pretty, people. And again, Jesus is asking us, look at that. That's what your loving little self thinks about your brother. And ultimately, that's what you're thinking about ourselves too. because we don't think we're worthy of the love of God. Would somebody turn the temperature up, maybe one? We don't want everybody to fall asleep. Thank you, down, yes. While you feel guilty, your ego is in command because only the ego can experience guilt. Have any of you ever felt guilty? Have any of you ever not been in a place where you felt guilty? Except for Bob. Bob doesn't feel guilty, I know.
Just looking. Whatever happens, there's a guilty part of it.
Absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. And once again, not to hide your guilt, not to pretend you don't have guilt, but to look at my guilt and become aware, yes, good little egos feel guilty. Okay. All right. And then, of course, he finishes the sentence with this need not be. Gee, I think he's got a theme going here. And I just want to read real quickly a little section on guilt from another area. Okay. If anybody wants to go to it, we are going to come back to this section, but if you want to follow in this paragraph, you can. It's on text 583 and 541 if you happen to have an old book. 583, paragraph 7. I think I'll just read the whole paragraph, even though there's a couple lines that are pretty prevalent. All right, the witnesses, paragraph 7, if I didn't say that. The witnesses of sin all stand within one little space, and it is here you find the cause of your perspective on the world. Once you were aware of what the cause of everything the world appeared to thrust upon you, uninvited and unasked, must really be, of one thing you were sure. Of all the many causes you perceived as bringing pain and suffering to you, your guilt was not among them, nor did you in any way request them for yourself. This is how all illusions came about. The one who makes them does not see himself as making them, and their reality does not depend on him. Whatever cause they have is something quite apart from him, and what he sees is separate from his mind. He cannot doubt his dream's reality because he does not see the part he plays in making them and making them seem real. So this whole paragraph describes how, because of the way we've set this up, it appears as though something outside of me is taking my peace away, and Jesus is constantly trying to bring us back to the realization, no matter what you see going on here, it's not about this, it's because this thought system is engaged. And he repeats this a bazillion times because we need to hear it a bazillion times. It's just not our natural flow yet. So when he says the witness to sin all stand within one little space, what he means by that, it's one mistake. The mistake is you chose wrongly. Nothing else is affecting you. It's only that choice. So this becomes actually quite easy, simple, as we begin to really embrace and understand this and begin to put it in play in our life. Because I don't have to worry about this, that, what all the things in the world that take place. One problem, one solution. The problem is I chose to separate from love. I see the result of that choice in whatever's being played out in my world. And now I can do something about it. And it is here you find the cause of your perspective on the world. And what am I going to, that one little space, what am I going to allow to live in that space? Am I going to allow the ego to live in the space, or am I going to allow the Holy Spirit to live in that space? And how do I know what space I'm stepping in, or I'm in? I shouldn't say stepping, I'm in. Am I at lack of peace in any way, shape, or form? Big or small, ugly or pretty or whatever, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Am I at peace or am I not at peace? And if I'm not experiencing peace, I know I've given that little space to the ego and not the Holy Spirit. And that will perceive how I the perspective I have of the world. Once you are aware of what the cause of everything the world appeared to thrust upon you, uninvited and unasked must really be, because as an ego, I didn't ask for this, I didn't invite this, because it's all been set up to make it appear as though it is something or someone else outside of me that's the problem. And gosh, you have to pat us on the back for the ability for us to pull this off in such an amazing, amazing way. It blows my mind still. Because talk about not being able to, seek but do not find in this world, because it's such an ironclad aspect of the thought system of the ego. But it's not God-proof, so we have a way out. But be very aware that while we're experiencing from the ego, it's not going to feel like I invited it or that I asked for it, despite the fact that I always have and always will, as long as I'm identifying with the ego. Of one thing you are sure, of all the many causes you perceived as bringing pain and suffering to you, your guilt was not among them. And where does my guilt live? My guilt lives in the thought of separation, because I believe I did something so awful to God that there's no way he's going to allow me to come back and be with him. So I harbor the guilt. I can't tolerate the guilt, so I push it out in the world and make it look like it's on something or someone else, so I can continue to hold the guilt, not have to go back to the love of God because I'm too afraid, and I can play the part of an innocent victim. And it's worked so beautifully for so long. And it will always, always, always keep us at bay from the peace that we seek, if indeed that's what we're seeking for. All right. Nor did you in any way request them for yourself, because I'm an innocent victim, and innocent victims don't do that to themselves. And unequivocally, from the moment we first take our very first breath, we live and breathe in that belief system. I mean, we actually believed in it before that, but in our experience of popping into the world, it came with us. And it's been there pretty much ever since, until we ask for help. This is how all illusions came about. All illusions, not one or two, or the one on the right and not the left, all illusions. The one who makes them does not see himself as making them, and their reality does not depend on him. And again, Jesus wants to reinforce this, because it is so unobvious in our experience that this is what we've pulled off. Because our natural flow is, I was at peace, you showed up. Again, I give the example, you're driving to work and you're whistling to the music on the radio and somebody cuts you off. I mean, obviously it wasn't me who did this. It's the idiot that doesn't know how to drive. And, we use all of the things we do at those people. And, that accomplishes a lot, and we move on with our day. But he's saying, please, please start to at least hold that in your mind as a possibility and begin to explore this so that you can start to understand what I'm trying to help you understand, so that you can walk with me instead of by yourself. Whatever cause they have is something quite apart from him, and what he sees is separate from his mind. But if you take this to the perspective of dreaming at night, all kinds of stuff happens in your dream, crazy, nutsy, sometimes good. But when you wake up, all the characters are gone. And where were they? They were in your head. And the very same thing applies to our daytime dream. All the characters, no matter who they are or how they act, are in your head. And they're being run by either the ego thought system or the thought system of the Holy Spirit. He cannot doubt his dreams' reality because he does not see the part he plays in making them seem real. And dang, do they seem real. And just, it's like a parade of insanity that walks through your life all day long. And so we got lots of places to practice. That's the beauty of this. We have lots of places to practice because the idiots won't go away. And the idiots won't go away because I'm the projector. I'm the one that's projecting the idiot. So how could it go away until my mind is healed?
Catch-22.
It's definitely a catch-22. And at the same time, if you respond in your usual attack mode, which you will, try not to judge yourself. Simply look at it and go, oh, there I go again. I'm still identified with my ego, and that's what egos do. Oh gosh, isn't that crazy? And don't take it quite so seriously. All right, so we're back to the other page, and we are going to work on paragraph 6, I believe. That's the next one.
What did you just say?
I said paragraph 6, and the section we were already reading before. All right, so watch your mind for the temptations of the ego and do not be deceived by it. It offers you nothing. When you have given up its voluntary dispiriting, you will see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. Yet, you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. This need not be. Again. All right, so he's saying the habit of engaging with God, watch your mind for the temptations of the ego, because the purpose of the ego is to perpetuate the ego. So it's right there because we've ordered it. If you order something from Amazon, it's going to show up on your front porch or wherever the delivery man comes. It's coming because we've ordered it to come. And why did we order it to come? We ordered it to come because we were too afraid of God's love. So we prefer to have this so I can play the part of an innocent victim until each one of us are now gradually awakening to the realization that the answer doesn't lie here. I've tried so many things to try to finagle my world, and my world still is in a place of lack of peace. And I want to see this differently. I can't figure it out on my own. And he wants us to continue to rely on him. As he said, leave the sins of the ego to me. That's what atonement's for. But how frequently do we do it? And not to judge yourself if you forget. It's a slippery kind of thing. You want to keep walking in that direction, but not judge yourself if you fall down the hill a little bit. But keep picking yourself up and going forward. All right, so watch your mind for the temptations of the ego and do not be deceived. Because the ego's job is to deceive you. The ego's job is to yank you back into the illusion. It's literally fighting for its life. It offers you nothing. Well, that's a real challenge for most of us because we think there's great value of our world. We think there's great value to me. I'm just like this wonderful thing, really. But we still cling to it, even if we don't really like what we see. We still cling to it because it's really all we've got going. All right, so it offers you nothing. And I remember on one of Ken's tape, he went into the process of, what is the body made up? It's made up of so much water and so much this and so much that. And he said, if you crumple that all down, it's just a pile of nothing. But while we're identified with our body, we think it's greatly of great value. When you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, you will see your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. And okay, so let's take those two words, voluntary dispiriting. So that's what we've done to ourselves. We've made ourselves less than what we are, and we have clung to it ever since. And he's saying, really, guys, it's time to move on from that little plan. That plan is not bringing you what you want any longer. Yes, when we wanted a place to hide, it was of great value. But now as we're recognizing the effects of making that choice is not bringing us what we want anymore, now we can do something different with it. All right. So when you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, and I don't know about the rest of you, but starting out in the course, when he kept telling me that it was my choice, I wasn't particularly thrilled with that information, and I surely didn't even believe it. I trusted that Ken was sharing information that was of value, but what? And this is what Jesus says again throughout the course in so many different ways, because he wants to get it, with a hammer on our head. Come on, guys, you got to get this one. So when you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, you will see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal, and will literally rise above, the insanity of the belief system of the ego. Yet you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. And basically what he's saying, and he says it throughout the course as well, we're little children learning how to walk, learning how to work with this new skill. And it's going to continue to take practice because we're not acclimated in the flow of this way of doing it. In fact, it is just the opposite of what the flow of our normal life experience is. But he keeps trying to explain to us that you can do this, and this need not be. You don't have to continue down that road any longer. And, I know I've said this many times, the ego set this all up. We can now take what the ego set up and recognize every time you're not at peace in your mind, whether you're judging yourself or somebody else, that's a reminder. Oh, I'm not at peace. That means I'm aligned with the ego, and now I can make another choice. So we take what the ego made and use it to do something else. Number 7. The habit of engaging with God and his creations is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. The problem is not one of concentration, it is the belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort. Side with me consistently against this deception and do not permit this shabby belief to pull you back. The disheartened are useless to themselves and to me, but only the ego can be disheartened. All right, so he says the habit. All right, we all know what a habit's like, whether it's I write with my right hand instead of my left hand, or if it's, I smoke or drink or shop or do whatever habits I have. Or I arrange things on my dresser in a certain way, and somebody comes along and moves them around, and then I get upset with that. Doesn't matter. Habits are very deeply seated programming in our minds that we don't want to have disrupted. And he's asking us to disrupt them because they're not really working for us. So the habit of engaging with God and his creations is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. Well, that sounds real easy, doesn't it? Just don't let my mind slip away. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I got a pretty slippery mind, and it's all over the place, so most of the time. And I just, as I was reading this paragraph, even being reminded of how many times I've read this paragraph, and it was like, yes, I got to do that. That's what I want. And yet, reading it again, that I'm not always doing it from that place. And not judging myself from that place, but recognizing that's the direction I do want to go. I do want to begin to train my mind so it doesn't slip away all the time. The problem is not one of concentration. It is the belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort. And I would say, along with that, there is the I'm still afraid of God aspect of this that keeps us wanting this instead of this. Because if I want this unequivocally, it means I don't want any of this. And there's still lots of little trinkets over there that I still want. And again, if you still want them or need them or think you need them, and I'll share a story in absence from Felicity where Helen had like a dream or a vision. She was in a shopping mall, and she and Jesus were walking down the mall, and they walked into the store, and this was the time when pantsuits were real popular, and Jesus handed her a pantsuit and said, "Here, this is all you're going to need." And he walked out of the store. Helen went back in and grabbed a handful of pantsuits because she wasn't ready to just have one. She didn't believe she only needed one. And he smiled and said, "It's okay. If you think you need more, you need more." So we need to respect where we are on our journey, but recognize that Jesus wouldn't have said you only needed one if he wasn't serious about that as well. And I could go, yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead. Yeah.
So he was trying to simplify people's lives.
Absolutely.
Just to be very basic, at least for the body, very basic to get you prepared for moving
Right.
on to to know yours.
Right, and I think symbolically, he was trying to help us recognize how simple this is. We think, there's lots of problems, but there's really only one problem. There's lots of solutions, but there's really only one solution. So I think it's both physically as well as symbolically that it's simple. You choose one or the other. That's all there is. And at the same time, his respect and honor that he knows we're not at a place to fully accept what he's offering.
Yeah, so really all of us just need a uniform.
Well, but you see, Miriam, that seems like the answer. But look at the Catholic churches, or so many. And I'm not picking on the Catholic Church, but so many groups decide we're going to wear the uniform, but that doesn't heal the mind.
Right.
So it's the mind we need to work on, not the physical aspects of it. Okay. And it's real tempting to think, if I just clean out this, then I got it. But I don't know if you've been here when I've shared the story of the two sadhus, naked sadhus in India, and the only thing they had was a mat that they meditated on. And one of the sadhus stepped on the other sadhu's mat, and then there was a rumble. So it's the simplicity has to come from here, not out here. Yeah. Well, but that's how sick and insane the mind is. And we think I can control it out here, but we can't, because that's not where the problem lies. All right. Side with me consistently against this deception, and do not permit this shabby belief to pull you back. And to me, it almost becomes like a teeter-totter ride. I choose for the Holy Spirit, and then I slam dunk back into the ego, and then I go, oh, okay, that's right, I need to choose again, and then it's back and back, and it especially initially, it's tiring. Because we're so used to just, being the one that's got down, the other poor guy's stuck in the air, and we think we're king of the road. Well, now we have to, bring this to balance, and it takes a little bit more effort. And again, not to judge yourself in your progression. Last week I talked about the idea of walking from here to the other side of the room. You don't take a hammer and beat a little baby bloody every time they fall down. You say, come on, get back up. You can do it. You can do it. And that's exactly what we do to ourselves every time we get the idea in the mind of what the Course is saying, and then we falter in our process of practice. The disheartened are useless to themselves and to me, but only the ego can be disheartened. So once again, he's referring to the idea of who you really are isn't disheartened. Who you think you are is disheartened. And as long as you're living and breathing and operating out of that darkened glass, you're not going to be of any help to yourself or to Jesus. But it has not affected who and what you are. And oh, thank goodness for that, because if we could have blown that, we would have blown that as well. And I think that's a really beautiful reminder. The character that I identify, that I think I am, is not really who I am. It's just the outfit. But to the degree I invest in that outfit and forget that I really am that other thing, I will reap the effects of that choice. And that's what we have to keep bringing it back, bringing it back.
We're too afraid to identify with the true identification.
Correct. And that's why we keep working towards the little willingness, the continuation of asking for help. Because right now, we're not capable of going from there to here and just jumping in and leaving everything behind. It's not going to happen.
I mean, you can sit there and tell me, I don't know the thing I am, but guaranteed I'll come up with 100 different reasons
Yep.
that I think is who I
Absolutely.
am, but they're all bullshit.
Absolutely, yes. And at the same time, as we continue to ask for help, we have the little willingness, more and more of a part of your mind is adjusting to the memory of what you are and is less holding on to the ego. And it's such a beautiful thing because it's you know, it feels like it's automatic. It's automatic as a result of choosing, but in the experience of your life, you can be struggling and struggling and struggling, and then suddenly it just shifts, and it's like, oh, this is what I've been working for all this time.
It sneaks in once in a while.
Oh, it does. It's so beautiful when it does. Yep, so beautiful. All right, paragraph 8. Have you really considered how many opportunities you have had to gladden yourself and how many of them you have refused? There is no limit to the power of a Son of God, but he can limit the expression of his power as much as he chooses. Your mind and mine can unite in shining your ego away, releasing the strength of God into everything you think and do. Do not settle for anything less than this and refuse to accept anything but this as your goal. Watch your mind carefully for any beliefs that hinder its accomplishment and step away from them. Judge how well you have done this by your own feelings, for this is the one right use of judgment. Judgment, like any other defense, can be used to attack or protect, to hurt or to heal. The ego should be brought to judgment and found wanting there. Without your own allegiance, protection, and love, the ego cannot exist. Let it be judged truly, and you must withdraw allegiance, protection, and love from it. So how do you like that first line? Have you really considered how many opportunities you have had to gladden yourself and how many of them you have refused? And I hate to say it, guys, and I'm speaking from my experience as well. Anytime you're holding thoughts of anything but love, you are giving your thoughts away to something other than God. And the answer is flip it. And watch how you don't always want to flip it. Because we're so adamant that we're right or we're justified or you name it, it goes. And I'm not asking you to pretend you want to be on the other side. This is important. Be brutally honest with, don't just go, okay. Do I really want just love for myself and my brother? And one day the answer will be unequivocally yes. Until it is, it's no. And it's really represents your investment in your belief system of the ego and what it gets. And what does it get? I get to be an individual, I get to be special, I get to be right, and I get to be God. And as long as those are still in play, I don't really want the other answer. Even if I sit here and unequivocally point my finger, oh, no, you just don't understand. This is what I want. This
You
is
know,
it.
even when you win, Mary Ann.
Oh,
what do you-
nothing.
What do you have?
An empty bucket. An empty bucket. And I would even say, observe your experiences when you have one, and really look at them, really question, what did I get by winning? Yay, I can, my little flag. But I'm not at peace. I'm not connected. I'm not experiencing that joy that he talked about in the other paragraph. So again,
Perpetuating the loop.
absolutely. Well, I'm going to read that line again because it's juicy. Have you really considered how many opportunities you have had to gladden yourself and how many of them you have refused? And do this very, very, very gently.
And we don't want that connection because it means giving up self, the self that we know
Absolutely.
and love.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And hate.
And hate, yeah. Yeah, duh.
Yeah, and you hate the result.
And you can't make the choice for the ego without getting the hate instead, because choosing for the ego is choosing for the absolute opposite of everything that we know ourselves truly to be. So it comes with the package. And I know I shared a movie I watched a while back where the person could make a wish and they got their wish, but when they made their wish, they lost their most prized possession. And everybody was very happy for a long time because they got their wish, but when they realized as a result of that they lost their prized possession, then they started to rethink the prize that they chose. Well, that's exactly what we've done. We got the prize. I'm God. I'm right. I'm an individual. I'm special and I'm different. Yahoo! But I had to leave love at the doorstep. And as we live our lives and become aware that something's not right here.
That's where you're still searching for it.
And we were doing the best we could, all I knew is to search here. There wasn't any other choices, and I looked far and wide, but that's not where the answer lies, so we'll never bring it. And again, look at how valuable becoming aware of this is, because it's a challenge to come to the point where my mind is totally focused 24 hours a day. But if even one moment in my day where something comes up and I go, okay, wait, I can choose now. Even if it's one moment a day, that's huge in the undoing process.
I mean, if you choose willy-nilly and you feel bad about the choice, then you have that moment where it's just another choice.
Yeah.
I find myself plowing through some experiences that I used to have by holding back. And I find myself plowing through these experiences and going, what did I do that for? And then I just say, oh, well, that's what I did.
Yes, yeah. And it's so beautiful when we can come to the point where we just go, oh, and that's what egos do. And we don't make a big deal of it. It's a beautiful place. Yeah. Because then we're observing the ego from here instead of playing the part of the ego, and this is where the healing comes from. When we're not the character, we're the observer of the character, we're outside of the dream. And we want to get out of the dream. Okay. All right, I think we'll stop there and we will take a break. We are back, Jack. All right, we are on paragraph 8, and we read the first line. So we'll go to the second one. There is no limit to the power of a son of God, but he can limit the expression of his power as much as he chooses. Well, when we go to sleep, we limit the power that we have. And, you can think about it like a light bulb, and the light bulb just radiates light. If you put a shade on it, it's going to cover it. It's not going to be as bright. And if you put a blanket on top of that, you might not even see the light. Well, we can't see our light, we can't see our brother's light because we're looking at the shade and the blanket and all the piles of stuff that we've put on top of that. But again, he keeps saying that nothing can change this. Can only be when we identify with this. We need to take the curtain off or take the shade off, and then the bright light is there unaffected at all. All right. Your mind and mine can unite in shining your ego away, releasing the strength of God into everything you think and do. So your mind and mine, it requires the two of them. I have to call, he joins me, and that's when the shining of the light goes, or the healing happens. So I know there might be a question out there, Kathleen.
I have 7.
7 questions, all right, go for it.
Okay. Well, I want to bring us back to early on. It said, if you're not fully joyous or in peace, you have thought something against a brother or yourself. I absolutely love that. I have
Beautiful.
those terms.
Yes.
And I just think that that's beautiful, and just wanted to say that. And the other part of that is, and the further on in the discussion, it reminded me of, I think I told Marianne this, but an AA lead I heard the other day. This guy lived under the bridge for 7 years homeless, and he ate out of a dumpster. He had been in AA for 35 years, drinking the whole time while he was in AA, and then the drink got him, and then he left AA under the bridge for 7 years, eating out of dumpsters, got down to 119 pounds, he's just waiting to die, and he asked some woman to help him with something, and he said she reamed him up upside down another. He said, I wondered if she was raised by wolves. It was actually kind of funny. It sounds like she was not nice to him.
I guess so.
At that moment, he had a spiritual awakening. And he heard everything she said to him are the things he could not admit to himself. And he got sober, and he's been sober for 20 years. And he had quite an amazing story. And it just felt like kind of like what we were
Right,
talking about
right.
here too, that there's a moment in time where we just get it. It's like he got it.
Yep,
he got
and
sober.
before you go on, I just want to comment about the woman who was raised by wolves. We might say, as a good little spiritual person, she wouldn't attack him or judge him or say the things she said to him. But that might have been a direction from the Holy Spirit that was required for him to get that at that point. So it's so easy to judge on either side, but we really don't know. Yep, go ahead.
That's the key.
That's the key. Yep.
And because you don't know.
That's the key.
What we think is the most loving thing
Correct.
really isn't.
When I'm sitting on my hands and I don't know what the answer is going to be, that's when I'm allowing that to flow.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I'm not saying she was there either, but I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Kathleen, would you read the first line again that you liked a lot?
If you're not fully joyous or at peace, you have thought something against your brother or yourself. But that's really, I
It's
love
very
that,
profound,
because
yes.
There's, a million times during the day where I start to sink back into sadness or missing my or whatever it is. And to have this for me in front of me now, to think about that, because I am mad at somebody or mad at myself. I
Absolutely.
mean, really, if I really.
Yeah,
You know-
we understand.
Kathleen, I don't know where you copied that from, but you can.
I
go to
just
page
read it.
Page 89, paragraph 5, and it's right on that. Whenever you are not wholly joyous, it is because you have reacted with lack of love to one of God's creation. And we're all God's creation.
Right.
And that's how we live.
Yep.
Constant attack when it's not going according to my agenda.
Exactly. And as I mentioned when we read that line, Ken used to say, if there's one person on the planet you still hold a grudge against, you're not done.
And I wanted to say to the guy who lived under the bridge,
he actually brought tears to my eyes because 31 years ago, I had a plan to commit suicide. I started drinking after 6 years, and I had a plan. And there was a divine intervention. It was my sister and my parents who saved my life.
Right.
And to look at how upset I am with my family today, it's like they saved my life back then for me to continue walking a spiritual path
Yep.
to where I'm at now. So what am I so mad at them for? You know, it's like,
Yep.
that just puts something in perspective.
Right,
for me.
and one other comment as well. Understand, in order to be an innocent victim, which is what the ego lives and breathes for, I have to have a something that irritates me, upsets me, takes my peace away, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, my body. There's got to be a something here. So in order to keep this going, I have to be angry, upset, irritated about something or someone, or I can't play the game.
Yeah, but you're
That's
never
big.
upset for the reason.
Well,
you
indeed,
think.
exactly, but when we play this game, it appears that it's the something else that's the problem,
It's
where
always
it's always
outside,
it's always the
But
mind,
you've gotta
yes,
bring it back.
correct.
It's never them, it's the choice I made.
Yes.
That's what you're thinking, that's true.
I'm not okay, so I stick it out.
Absolutely.
That's the whole game.
That's it exactly. And I'm never okay when I've identified with the ego. It's impossible.
And it makes you want to keep wondering what you're upset about. So you wondering why, that's a part of the ego saying, ha ha, this is the way it worked, so just, I guess I was telling Marianne about that I had this tree removed from behind my garage, and everything was going all right, but I didn't, I think I decided that I wanted it, I wanted everything. I wanted the tree and I wanted the garage, and I didn't want all the things that I had to do. And I was mad. I'm still mad. I was mad yesterday. I went to look, the big trunk is there. It was a live tree compared to a dead garage. But I made a choice. I had to make a choice. And I was still mad. And somebody came over and I said, I wish I had a tree and I didn't have a garage. And the little boy said to me, Andrea, this is where you put all your little shovels and your dirt, and this is what you need. This is what you like. Don't be telling somebody else that they did it to me or that I had to do it. You want things, you want your garage. You need your garage because this is what you like to do. You like to garden and play with all these things. And it was so interesting. I just got that whole opinion just dumped right in my head, and I said, oh, okay, I guess it's me. And that helped me, that cheered me up. Because you could play that, push-pull, it's like you keep pushing and pulling with yourself, and every idea you have in your head, you keep going round and round, that this is wrong, I wish I'd done that, I wish it was different.
Oh, yeah.
And it never is. And so then to ask for help is to get, I guess, it
Well, I
straightening
think
out.
that all of, even what you said and what you just said, what I said, it's all a trap.
Oh, it's a
all
huge
hanging out
trap.
in my own head, and my trap is, I love my family, I'm loyal to my family, how dare they not speak to me, and look what they did to me.
And repeat it over and
That
over
goes
and
on
over and
on
over.
and on
Yep.
and on, yet there was a time in my life where they saved my life.
There you go.
Yeah, but the key is to bring it back and see what you've done to you. Look at that.
Well, right, that's what I mean, it's all up there anyway.
Don't you feel, so when you went through that with your family, did you feel gratitude back then? Did you feel gratitude that they saved your life? I mean, is that was the operating principle that you had
I
gratitude?
think it was divine intervention, it really was.
So how did that make you feel?
It should not have happened the way it happened, and it did. In life went on, I was in my 30s, and I was getting sober again, and I was in treatment for 3 months. There was a whole bunch going on, and then I went to school, so you just roll right into life then.
She was down and out in the pits.
But I think the beauty of this story is through his story, you became consciously aware of what a gift that was, all these years ago. And oftentimes, when something happens, we're not even, we might say, oh, that's nice and whatever. But later on, we can have those pieces of the puzzles that come together, and it's like, wow, that was, like you said, it wasn't supposed to happen. Well, it did happen, and that was amazing.
Well, and that's why Denise's suicide affected me so
Sure.
much, because, again, when my parents were dying, I was gonna die with them. I really didn't care anymore. And somebody divinely stepped into my life and saved my life again. Like, I am supposed to stay,
Mhm.
and I'm supposed to get this.
Right.
And I'm getting it much deeper than I've ever gotten it.
Exactly.
Because so many things have been cleared out of my, out of my life. And another line you said is, who will you have in your space? I love that, because who you fill in your space with, and it does become clear. Who did you invite into the space, you said, or you asked for it, whatever happens, it's like,
Yeah.
but then it also goes back to the original thing about the joyous and at peace, it's like, and also the anxious thing too, you said that's a red flag also, it's like, there's so many red flags.
Oh, they're
How can we not
everywhere.
get this?
And that's,
We don't want
Because
to.
we like the red flags.
Oh.
That's right, you don't wanna look
we
at it.
cling to them like, for our very life. And we are clinging to them for our very life as long as we're playing this game.
You also said, leave the sins of the ego to me. What does that mean? All
Well,
the drama, the chaos?
The whole
craziness,
thing, I don't know, here you go.
Whatever isn't joyous, that's it.
And I was thinking about, we were talking, I believe, about how we think we're so valuable.
Oh, golly.
But I just wanted to say this.
And then we hate as Rose said, and then we hate ourselves in the same breath. I mean, it's so sick.
Well, I just wanted to share this little thing, because I watched every little piece of dignity and self-respect taken away from my parents. They had no choice. They were so horrible to them in the nursing homes. It's kind of like, we think we're valuable. We spend our whole lives working for something.
Yep.
And then like that, it can be all taken away from you by other human beings. So it was like disgusting to
Yep.
watch that.
Yeah,
But-
and Jesus makes fun of us when he says you think your input is
Oh, it has some value.
so, your contribution is
Yes.
so valuable.
But you don't know, Kathleen, if your parents needed that classroom, and I'm not saying they do, to come to the point where they were willing to drop the body. And I mean, I can remember my father-in-law when he was getting very close to the end. He had this one favorite ring, and I swear he lost it every time we came over, and my husband's crawling around under the bed looking for it and whatever. And I thought, what the heck is that about? And it finally occurred to me, if I've got a ring and it's lost and now it's fine, I have a finger that's me, that is of value. And it's like I really became so acutely aware of how attached to these bodies we are. It's beyond amazing. Yeah.
I think someplace in the course, I don't remember where, it says, we come here to die.
Amen. Yeah.
And, I was looking because of Denise's recent
Right.
suicide.
Right.
That's been, I've
Sure.
processed that as it comes up. And I'm trying to look at that without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. And I think that we choose our own deaths.
I mean, the
saw-
Course actually states that for
Yeah, I saw
one.
my
Yeah.
father do it, I saw my
Yep.
mother do it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I kind of trust that.
Well, and think about if you sign, let's say you want to be a nurse and you go to your counselor and she said you got to sign for these classes, blah, blah, blah. And let's say you get to class and it's like, oh man, I don't want to do this class. Well, that person either says, okay, I'm going to trudge forward, and they go,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
For me.
And, the Course talks about the same classroom gets presented over and over and over. And, her checking out at this time could just simply be, I'm not ready to do it right now.
Right.
And that's not something to be judged. It simply is no different than me not wanting to choose what I want to put in that space. And, this seems more dramatic in our realm of understanding what's real and what's not real, but who knows?
Does the
And
Course
it's
in
only
Miracles,
because that's what we choose,
Well, yeah,
how to look at it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
She played her part.
And,
It-
yes.
like
Yes,
Ruth
I
is-
did.
it keeps me
To
rooted
the
here.
end.
I love what
Usually.
Byron Katie says, a stillborn child has lived a full life.
Absolutely.
they played a part.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
You know, either it's a walk-on part, or, it's a 40-year part, or an 80-year part, whatever. And I
Yes.
think that matters.
Yeah, in the scheme of the big picture, you don't know what the hell it's all about.
Nope.
I have absolutely no idea.
And
I
that
have absolutely no
baby
idea.
could have come as a classroom, as well as I'm sure with Denise, it's been a classroom for all of us in our own little ways of dealing with this. We don't know. We just don't know.
And there's a lot of, what-ifing and if
Oh, yeah.
only, and some denial. But
Sure.
the main thing I know is that sometimes even when people are using the course, they're, and I do it too, imposing a narrative on events. We can really only impose a narrative if you know what the story, the full story, the novel is. And I don't know what anything is really for. I mean, I used to spend years complaining about my qualifying ex-husband and my two mini-me's, my stepsons. Well, my one stepson committed suicide as I mentioned before, and the other one committed suicide the alcoholic way, walking in front of a truck at night, drunk. And their fathers survived all that. He was just mad for years, hunting down this semi-truck driver. But one day it just popped out of my mouth last month, It took 3 qualifiers to get me out of my story.
There you go. There you go.
And then later on, I'll have a different idea about what it was all about. And then after that, I won't have any story.
Yep. Exactly. And Jesus,
there won't be
a story. Yes.
Right.
Jesus says in the Course, in order for you to make a judgment about anything, you would have to know absolutely everything but in the past and in the future in order to bring yourself to that point. So it's not that we shouldn't judge, it's that it's really impossible for us to judge.
Right.
But watch us go. So until we're ready to drop that.
Yeah, I was telling a story about, if only I was 20 again and I did this, and that. If only I hadn't met the so-and-sos. So-and-so told me not to marry so-and-so,
But I didn't listen, right?
On and I'm just a victim, and these people were victims. I used to work for the Victim Legal Aid Society. And
of course you did.
There was a cause. You had to have a cause. You're going after the enemy. But especially I worked in nursing homes a lot because I was in the older persons unit. But when you really talk to people, you can make a story about how they ended up there.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes sense then.
It makes some sort of sense. I
They
mean,
tell you why.
but then they're also me, and I'm in their story.
Absolutely. And that's what we really need to hone in on.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, not a.
That's a good,
Yeah.
Let that.
That's the key, is you're only seeing yourself in everything and everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So a friend of mine said today, she said, I finally realized after 2 bad husbands, P-A-D, quote unquote, that I used to think life was happening at me. She said, it's happening through me.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes those 2 bad husbands or the 3 charmers in your life were our classroom. They're challenging us to move forward in a way that we would not have moved away towards if we had the little white picket fence and everything was what we thought was wonderful. We don't know what we came here for. And, I know I've shared this with Kathleen. If we could look at everyone that irritates the hell out of us and remind ourselves that those people loved us so much that they came here to play that part because they wanted to help us get home.
Yeah, there's some Wayne Dyer book like that. There's a kid
Is it?
There's a Little Soul in the Sun.
Oh,
That's it.
okay,
Yes,
okay, yeah.
That's it.
That depicts that very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not our first reaction, people.
Yeah, so I was wondering, I should have done when I was 20, and if only, what if.
There's no
But
sense.
then higher power said the next day, there is no time.
That's right. You got it.
I feel so much better.
Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful awakening awareness. Yes. Yeah.
And the healing occurs from what you've experienced. The
I
healing,
don't know what it is about that.
you don't know when the healing will come about your
No.
parents or your family, and it's interesting, because when the healing comes, it doesn't matter what time it is or what you're thinking about, nothing matters. Like, all of a sudden you get it, hey, this is just,
Yep.
this is how it is, this is what happened, and this is where God was in this situation, and that's where the healing, where you discover where God really was, where God really is like here right now. And it doesn't matter, all those things you thought back then, it pulls it all together, and then you're just healed in the moment, and you won't think about it. You won't think about it that same way, because that's what you need healed, is the way you're thinking about it.
Well, I can't wait for that moment when I don't hold everything I have against my siblings. I can't wait till that falls away. That, to me, will be a spiritual awakening for me, or it just, because as much as I want to be in relationship with them, how dare they do that to me?
Well, that's not what you
What
have
they
to
do
want,
to
you have to
me.
want God and a consistent, so that was my question about what I was reading.
Just keep asking for help.
While
Well,
you were
get it.
reading about
And
that.
another thing that you said, Mary Ann, don't let your mind slip away. Train your mind not to slip away. And I wanted to say that my parents taught me more about love in the last couple of years of their Alzheimer's than my
Again,
entire
a
life
gift,
with them.
a gift.
They were just absolutely amazing, and they weren't even in their right mind. They were just simply loving to me.
Yep.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And do
so-
you think you could have ever said those words before that happened? Absolutely no way.
So there was a whole lot of meaning to me,
Yep.
their lives, my whole life, even the way they left the planet, which was a disgrace in the nursing home, I will still say. Don't
But
let
you
your
need to
mind
work
slip
on forgiving
away.
them as
Yeah,
well
right.
someday. Yep.
Don't let your mind slip away. Are you talking about slip away from the truth?
Yeah, the space. Who's in your space?
I like that a lot.
You know, and I oftentimes, which is a little bit different, but I'll say, if I'm over here in the ego block, I cannot get the answer here, I have to step over here. And then this is gone. And now I live only in this. Which space do I want to live in?
Yeah, my uncle was complaining, my uncle, one of my uncles was, talking about something that happened in Buffalo where people were killed. And, he says, what are we gonna do about these people? They're sick. But he wasn't just talking about that one guy, he was talking about the guys, that guy that,
Right.
identified with.
Right.
I said, well, you can't, what do you mean solution? There's no solution in the paradigm. You're in the same paradigm that person is in.
Absolutely,
How can
absolutely.
you solve it inside the paradigm? You cannot.
Exactly.
I'm gonna try to quote you, this world is not meant to work.
Well, it's not only was it not meant to work, it will never work. It can't. And we're always trying to solve the problem here. It can never be, ever be solved here. Because it's the mind that's where the problem is, and the mind is where the solution is. And what's going on here is just the projection on the screen.
The ego wants to gather it all up and throw it at somebody. It wants it to be their fault, and damn it, stop that, and then it's
Yep.
all done.
Well, if I
You ought to know better,
forgive-
he's in his 80s, has it changed?
No. There is no, you should know better by that age. That's not the way this works.
No, and it isn't.
No.
But he's experienced it over and over again, because he's experiencing himself over and over again, how it never gets solved.
But I'm amazed at how we can walk through the same classroom, and we all have, our own specific little classrooms that we go through over and over and over, I mean, like, on a daily basis, and we don't see. And then one day, you get it, and it all falls away after years.
That happened to me, I'm separated from much of my family, part of it was deliberate. I'm tired of being the maid or whatever. And I moved to Ohio. So, I was thinking, they sent me these pictures, we're all together, and, we're having a good time. I'm thinking, no, it wouldn't be for me, but, but then the Holy Spirit said, you're not separate from them, just because you're in Ohio.
Yeah, really. They call you, don't they?
They just, well, Holy Spirit said, well, they were too, but no, I mean, it's just an illusion that I'm separated from them.
Absolutely.
It's not the truth.
Absolutely, yep.
I can tell myself the story all day long,
And we do.
but my absence contributes to their story, and their absence
Oh,
and
yeah.
presence contributes to my story.
Sure, sure. And we love stories, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Kathleen, you have one more?
Would we say my self-righteous unforgiveness and anger at my is my fear of God?
Yes.
Yep.
Unequivocally.
I have,
My fear of God, me, not.
Well, the part of you that believes you're separate,
yeah,
which is what you identify with. So it's not really who you are, but it's what you think you are. So yes,
So that's keeping me from the love of God.
absolutely. Well, it is, but understand if you're afraid of the love of God, this is your buffer. This is your security blanket. And as we keep asking for healing, when we become aware of the suffering and the pain and we get tired of it, then we're willing to drop it. You know, it's one or the other, kid. You know, you can't have both worlds.
And it doesn't mean you're stupid, it means you're
No,
afraid.
it means you're in
It means
pain and you're afraid,
You're
yes.
not doing anything
They're
wrong.
all our defense mechanisms
Yes.
against the love.
Yes, and so look at it and go, okay, Holy Spirit, I see I put a wall up against this because I'm still afraid. Show me how to move beyond my fear. And then drop it.
Get out of the way.
I had an experience last week that touches on this. I walk in the park every night, and I was on my way to the park, and I go down this hill to get to the parkway. And this particular street, you go down the hill and then you go up the hill, you pass the park. It's a two-way stop. There's no stop sign on the parkway, but there's, two stop signs on either way. And I frequently get irritated when I go down this road and there's somebody on the other side because there's a stop sign on my end before the bike path. So I have to stop at the before the bike path, and then I have to go past the bike path so I can see if cars are coming. And the person coming in the other direction rarely stops. When they see me stop at the stop sign and I start going, they go. They don't wait, So sure enough, this happened. And I start turning and this guy just goes. And I had my window down and I screamed at him, "You're supposed to wait for me!" And he slowed down, he's passing me, and he slowed down and he's landed on his horn, and I repeated it again. And then I yelled, "Fucking asshole!" And then I turned. And my first reaction was fear. He's gonna turn around and he's gonna come at me. So my next inclination was find some place to hide.
Right.
So I pulled into a parking lot not far away and I parked between these cars where I couldn't be seen. And I got out of the car and I started to walk because I wanted to process. And what I was shown was exactly what the Course teaches. Mind makes a choice for ego. Now, I wasn't aware of the guilt right away, but I was aware of the fear. Mind makes a choice for ego. Guilt. I can't stay in that guilt. I have to project it out. And once I project it out and I attack, I'm afraid God's going to come after me. So I have to hide. This is what's going on all the time.
Yep.
But and this is the other kicker. Right before this happened, I was asking for help.
And you got it. Not exactly the package you were
I was
hoping.
actually talking to Ken.
Wow.
But the other thing that I saw that was just so helpful was not only this character,
No,
not only this character is my gift, this character's my gift.
Yeah.
because they're both coming from the same
It
mind.
was so helpful. My reaction is the same as this guy attacking me, is waking me up.
Mhm. Yep.
Where's the guilt? There's no guilt there. There's no guilt in that moment.
And, because she shared with me with this before class, and I mentioned to her, a lot of other spiritualities would say, well, don't get angry, don't get upset, but the Course is saying become very acutely aware of what you're up to and your responses, but then sit with it, spend some time with it. What is really underneath that's, being hidden that I'm not aware of? And you can find information that's unbelievable at times,
It was
unbelievable.
As Denise used to say, bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my reaction to that is to say, I walk in the park a lot. And I was walking in the park 2 days ago. I don't walk at night so much anymore in this big park. I used to. People say, you're walking at night? Yeah. But I don't walk as much at night. So I was walking during the middle of the day. And I saw this person, had a backpack, didn't have a car. Everybody has a car at this park, And I noticed he was kind of hanging back to see what direction I was going to go. That's my story. So there are like 4 paths. And so I picked the one to the far side, because then he would really have to turn around. Then I would know for sure. Well, he did. He turned around. I started coming down that way. And eventually I have a little protocol for stuff like that. I take the outside path, I go up, 1,000 feet, and then I turn into the subdivision. There's a subdivision over there. So in the morning, there are tons of cars there. So he followed me out of the park and up this pathway. And I just decided, you know what? I'm giving this all the attention that's going on here. I'm making up a story. This is the result of me making up this story. I have so much paranoia and fear about things that now it's become embodied. So shut it off. And so I just refused to look back. I just kept on walking, took my time, and I don't know where he went, but
You erased him out of your mind,
yeah,
right?
It's my attention. What am I paying
Oh yeah,
attention to? And then
oh yeah.
it happens sometimes when I come home, there's a kind of a party house across the street, and people will hang out in front. I don't know who they are. I come home like maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock sometimes. And my neighbor says, why are you circling around the house? I said, I don't know who this person is in front of my house. He said, well, just get out of your car and go in your house. But now what I notice is that it's my energy that brings people.
Absolutely.
And I can either use it as a blessing or a curse. So I started blessing these people, like when I'm coming out of my driveway, I can just count on it. Somebody will be driving up the street all of a sudden. And I'll have to stop. Or I'm getting ready, I'm in a hurry and I want to cross the street. Somebody will appear. So I just started blessing all of them, because I just don't want this mind of fear and trapping and paranoia. I don't want it. So I stopped. It'll come back.
Kudos to you about the park. I mean, kudos to you for your behavior in the park.
Oh man, I'm thinking, this is sick. I don't know what he's intending, but I feel sick. It's not a mindset I really want.
Exactly, and that's what Jesus keeps saying over and over. Is this really what you want, guys? Yeah. And I remember reading a book a long time ago where this guy used to pickpocket and steal people's purses and whatever. And he said he would sit on the stump front steps, and he would watch people going down the street, and he knew who he could go and grab their purse because they'd be walking around like this. They were creating the energy, and he just took advantage of it.
They were cruising for a crucifixion.
There you go. Well, isn't that the way it is, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's all, except the connection in the mind.
Yeah, stay away, but calm down, because I need a perpetrator here to keep this going, and that's really, and try to catch those moments of what am I really doing here.
I have a friend who told me a story she was in the airport, and she was a very busy person. She had a business and she had kids at home and everything, but she was in the airport, she was trying to do something. She was in the telephone booth, and that some guy came in and he put something in her back, and he said, hands up, he said, I'm gonna shoot you. And she started to laugh, because she just didn't have any energy. She had no energy for whatever this bozo was up to, and she couldn't have, I mean, she just told me that. We were laughing so hard because, like, oh my God, you could have been killed. Well, but I wasn't killed, so. It's just, like, cause her mind, wasn't.
Your mind wasn't in that place, yeah.
I wanted to ask about something that,
Sure.
we read on page 63, or I guess 63 and 64. Talked about the habit of engaging with God, using consistent effort. Refusing to let your mind slip away is not one of concentration, belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort.
Right.
So would you say that something like, I'm thinking of like what's worth consistent effort in my life has been like practicing the piano. I think like to connect with something, I guess in the world that you do, where you do use persistent effort.
Right.
And that would be helpful to to us studying this course, is to have learned how to use specific, to use our mind that way, to consistently practice how to do something, and that would be helpful then in knowing that if that's what it takes, consistent effort.
Absolutely.
That you could keep doing that. I get, it's just that we think it's more like a voodoo for us when things happen. We think, oh my God, what's that? They did that, or look what they're doing. So instead of like practicing the consistent effort of allowing and asking the Holy Spirit to help,
Exactly.
and that's the practice that he's talking about. And you don't have to. I guess that you believe that doesn't work is, I guess, what's.
Well, because we don't trust that this process is really going to give us what he keeps promising it will.
Right, so then the practice it's not like, in that way, it's not like the piano.
Right,
Because the
right.
piano, then you learn the piano, and this you learn to just keep expanding your energy to ask for help. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yes.
Because I find that people who know how to practice something, that this is something that might be more in alignment with what they know, how to, you can't just wake up and do it all of a sudden. And I think too that's what the other religion I was steeped in gave you a lot of words and voodoo to say to keep all the bugaboos away. And then and that's really the problem, personally for me, that there's a lot of little catchphrases and things that I think of about Jesus, or that I was taught kind of like just like use those, like you just say that and then you're all set.
Yep.
So my grandmother used to say, whenever we'd say anything we're going to do, she said, with the help of God. She said,
Right,
with the help
right.
of God. We get so mad at her because she was like making us crazy with that. With the help of God, like, because she always wanted to bring that out in the forefront, and so the rest of us couldn't. I guess understood. She thought she was helping.
Right. Sure. Sure, she was.
She thought that was the way to do it.
Yep.
So that's interesting, like how we want to make our spirituality easier, more accessible to just whatever little everyday little tips and little little gadgets to correct and reorganize and then go to here and go to there. But actually we can't. But it's not that.
Right.
It's
Yep.
a practice.
But
Releasing all that and asking for help.
And once again, compared to what Rose shared in her experience, it wasn't just make that go away, it's okay. They irritate me, so I'm going to pretend they don't irritate me. She really went full forward into the experience of it, had the effects of it, and then settled in and spent some time in the experience of that to allow the empty space to be filled by an understanding on a deeper level.
And the other thing that I saw, was I was waiting for him.
Well, you were waiting for him to do it.
I wanted him to do that. I wanted him to do exactly what he did.
Just like what you were saying, Zita, same
Because,
thing.
You know, I mean, we need someone to
Yes,
blame.
yes.
So, you know, I was waiting for that. But that,
That's
you know,
our
I don't
secret
see,
wishes.
I don't see that until after,
Sure,
you know.
but you're aware now,
Oh,
more so.
very aware. I was lying in wait, like the Course says, you know.
That's what we're always.
It's like a cat.
Absolutely.
Waiting for the energy, you had the energy, that
Mhm.
energy you were expanding.
Yep.
You had that energy of a fight or something.
Yep.
Inside you probably before.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of that at the time.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah.
because I'm talking like 5 seconds before that, I'm talking to Ken in my mind. You know,
There you go.
And Ken is very, very, very threatening to that side of the chart. And I'm talking like seconds beforehand, I'm asking Ken.
And then it switches.
And it's like, yeah, it's like a light switch,
And you're like,
you know,
I dare you.
and the next thing I know is just, I'm screaming at this person.
You're really screaming at yourself.
Right,
And-
right, right.
And then, you know, and
That's
then,
a key.
and then seeing that need to hide was very.
Oh, that was very powerful,
very
yes,
helpful,
yeah.
Like
very
shameful, were you
helpful.
ashamed?
No.
Fear,
Fear.
Fear.
Yeah.
Scare the heck out of yourself.
Fear, he's going to come and get me.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
he's
Well,
story.
he's being sent for God.
Yes.
right, which
He's
is,
going to come and get me.
right, which is the original
Yes.
belief that when we chose to separate from God, that God's gonna come back to get me and do to me what I thought he did to him. So there's that internal, I'm ready and waiting for something to come and get me.
That gets played out here
All the time, yes.
Everybody stands in
For God,
Yes, including me.
including this. Yeah, that's to see that my reaction is just as much as a gift was, I think, probably the most
What did
helpful
you
thing.
just say? Everybody stands in for God?
Yes, yes.
She said that before, too.
How you see God, how you see God, how you see your brother, and how you see yourself are all identical.
And your relatives.
So if it's not God that you're threatened by, it's your brother, but it's really a reflection of the relationship you have with God, because you're afraid of God, now you're afraid of your brother, or you're afraid of something in your mind.
Yeah, he's going to retaliate.
Yep.
Which, of course, nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Right.
This time, no.
Nothing happened yet.
No, well,
Well, I think it's interesting you got to this place where you know the actions of people, like the stop signs, how you explained how the stop signs are situated. And it's almost like so the only thing he could have done was what he did, or he could have done what you wanted him to do.
well, but he did do what she wanted him to
He
do.
did do what I wanted.
Okay, but I mean, in your mind
Right.
though, before you went there, you said people usually do this, right? You said people, when I get to this place, they usually just turn.
You gotta realize, I repeat this every night. I'm down there every night.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So, you know, and it's not very often that there's somebody on the other side, but when there is, 9 times out of 10, they go, you know, they don't wait.
Yeah. they
Yep.
don't wait
Because
for you.
I'm stopping, and then I'm stopping again.
Yeah,
Which I understand. I understand that, but
you didn't
in
want
that
you
moment,
couldn't let
you
it
know,
go.
The
right.
crazy lady came out.
you know, and the other important thing is, don't define yourself by that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Because we all have the
Yes.
choice, it's
Yep.
just it's just a choice in that moment.
What's another reason not to define yourself that way?
Right.
To me, the mystical layer of the Course in Miracles is that it's not even my own thought.
That's
Right.
exactly.
It's not the Zeta, because Zeta is just an effective this. She's the puppet being played out by this.
Yep,
And this and that out there.
Exactly, exactly.
shit happens.
Shit happens, right. All right, with that thought, we will close. All right. So everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept with this into the minds that you've created and which you love. Amen. And I just want to mention one real quick thing, and I've given this example before. If you're walking into a situation that's always happened a certain way, and you have your jello mold that it's going to happen this time, it will happen this time. If you can stop and go, wait, I don't know what's going to happen, then you open the door to another possibility. Again, you're in charge. All right, let's go out and play. Have a good week, guys.
Thanks, Marianne.
Good to see you.
Okay.